After my girlfriend and my good friends tortured and killed me and dumped my body, I found out that I was the biological son of the richest man who was abducted many years ago. After I died, they took my keepsake to the richest man's house and bribed the doctor to fake my identity. My so-called good friend successfully replaced my identity, married my girlfriend, and they lived a life of wealth and luxury. When I opened my eyes again, I went back to the day when my girlfriend was about to kill me. "Honey, let's go camping in the mountains tonight. I'll have a surprise for you then," I said with a smile. She smiled and nodded happily. However, I turned around and ran, thinking, "You guys go camping, I'm going to go find my relatives first." The story is about to begin. If you like it, remember to like and subscribe. This is my 5th year of dating my girlfriend Sophia. That day, she took the initiative to invite me to go camping in the mountains with her eyes curved. Sophia looked at me lovingly and said, "Dear, let's go camping in the mountains tonight. I will have a surprise for you then." Seeing her smiling face, I couldn't help but curl my lips, reached into my pocket, and touched the diamond ring I just bought. I also prepared a surprise for her. During this period, I was immersed in company affairs all day, working day and night, and finally led the company to conquer a big project. The company's prospects are bright. And I finally have the confidence to protect her. I have been mentally prepared for a long time before I have the courage to buy this diamond ring and prepare to propose. The night when I went camping in the mountains was the best time for me to propose. I gladly accepted Sophia's proposal. Sophia immediately put on a longing expression, acted like a little girl and flirted with me, then said innocently, "Let's go to Nanshan. I heard there are fireflies there at night. Nanshan is far from the city, and there are few people there." I always felt that something was wrong, but then I thought, it is true that fireflies can only be found in sparsely populated places. This is just Sophia's little wish, and as a boyfriend, I can't fail to satisfy this. So I nodded and agreed. Sophia was overjoyed and hugged me and kissed me. I immediately called my friends and asked them to help me buy some camping tools and self-defense equipment. After everything was ready, Sophia and I went up the mountain together. I don't know why, but Sophia seemed to be quite familiar with the road there, but she did take me to a place that looked safe. I thought she had made a plan in advance and didn't think much about it. After arriving at the destination, I set up the tent by myself and asked Sophia to rest nearby. Unexpectedly, as soon as the tent was set up, before I had time to get up, I felt something hit me hard on the back of my head. I was stunned. I turned around subconsciously despite the severe pain, but I saw a person who should not be here, my good friend, David. He looked at me with a wicked smile, raised high the self-defense equipment I brought with me, and before I could react, he hit me hard on the top of my head. I was knocked to the ground instantly, with heavy blows landing on my head and limbs one after another. I couldn't believe it, and after I screamed, I was hit hard on the head with a stick. A second before I lost consciousness, I saw Sophia, whom I loved deeply, watching all this coldly behind David as if nothing had happened. I was beaten to death by David. After I died, my soul floated out of my body and I watched David throw away his self-defense equipment and turn around to kiss Sophia. "Now that he's dead, no one can stop us," Sophia said with a smile. "Take his necklace and body and throw it under the cliff." David lifted my body up in a few seconds, walked a distance and put it on the edge of the cliff, then kicked it hard. My body rolled down the cliff and was shattered into pieces with a loud bang. The diamond ring that I carefully selected for Sophia was also in my pocket and rolled down the cliff with the body, along with my love. I wailed silently and stared at the two people angrily, but I saw that they were staring at the necklace snatched from my hand with excitement, and then took out their mobile phones to read a news report. "The richest man is seriously ill and is looking for his missing only son." I had seen this news before, but I didn't pay much attention to it. I watched them click on the news in confusion, then scrolled down and found the keepsake that the richest man's child was wearing. The necklace was half covered by a code, but the remaining half was almost exactly the same as the one I had been wearing. My pupils suddenly shrank, and I watched in disbelief as the two of them dialed the phone number of the richest man's family. I died, but my soul has not yet dispersed. I can only helplessly watch the two of them use the necklace to identify my father and bribe the doctor to forge the paternity test results. David insisted on giving up treatment when my father could still be saved, and my father died of illness. And all the family property fell into the hands of these two people. My eyes were bloodshot, and during their wedding, I rushed towards them fiercely, wishing to die with them. But I only had a trace of resentment left, and I couldn't touch them even if I wanted to. As the resentment disappeared, I completely lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, Sophia was standing in front of me. When I saw her for the first time, I was startled and took a few steps back. Seeing my reaction, Sophia's eyes flashed with suspicion, but then she took a step forward and said something that I was very familiar with. "Dear, let's go camping in the mountains tonight. Then I will have a surprise for you." My body trembled. I looked at her in disbelief, and then pinched myself hard. The familiar pain came, and I was so excited that I almost cried. Only then did I realize that, for some reason, I was reborn, and returned to a time when my fate had not yet been changed, and there was still time for everything. Seeing that I didn't respond, Sophia frowned and then said, "Honey, why don't you say anything?" Sophia asked with a vigilant look on her face. I calmed down and said, "You prepared a surprise for me. I am so touched. I also prepared a surprise for you." "Really?" Sophia said in mock surprise. "Really?" I nodded. Of course it was fake. This time, without Sophia asking, I took the initiative to say, "Let's go camping at Nanshan tonight. I heard there will be fireflies there at night, which is very romantic." "Okay." Sophia was overjoyed when she heard that. She didn't expect that I would take the initiative to bring it up. Whether or not her plan is advanced, I certainly won't really give them this opportunity. "Going up Nanshan, right? I want you to go up with a smile and come down with tears." In my previous life, the two of them used the self-defense equipment I prepared to kill me, and then used the things I prepared to spend a night safely on the mountain and come down smoothly the next day. Of course we have to go up the mountain, but this time, I won't prepare anything. You two can go up the mountain by yourselves. In front of Sophia, I made a phone call just like I did in my previous life and asked for what equipment to prepare. After I hung up the phone, Sophia looked at me with satisfaction and said, "Honey, I'm going to get some things. See you in the evening." I was secretly happy. Sophia certainly didn't expect me to run away. At the same time, she knew that if she didn't let me go, I would get suspicious, so she nodded and agreed. I immediately drove away from this place, and then told the brother who had just called me, "You don't need to prepare anything special, just some scrap metal will do, nothing will happen." My brother agreed very readily. We grew up together and we usually get whatever we want. If I asked for scrap metal, he would not go ahead and prepare some sophisticated and expensive equipment for me, but would actually bring me a bunch of scrap metal. The road down Nanshan is very dangerous. Without good equipment, it would be really dangerous. After making the plan here, I immediately took out my mobile phone, found the news, and contacted the richest man through the contact information left on it. Since it was still early and I was free, the richest man Mark asked me to go to the hospital directly. After arriving at the hospital, as soon as I saw Mark, I didn't even need to take out the keepsake necklace. Mark's eyes suddenly turned red. The reason was that Mark and I looked so much alike, like we were cut from the same mold. And my eyes were a bit like Mark's wife's, so he recognized me almost at the first sight. I took out my necklace. Mark looked at it for a while, then with tears in his eyes he hugged me and said, "My child." In this situation, my eyes unconsciously became red. Although Mark already believed that I was his child, I insisted on doing a paternity test. Mark specially arranged for someone to expedite it, but the results would not be available until 3 days later. I compared our respective timelines with him and found that everything matched up. He said that I disappeared when I was 3 years old, and I grew up in an orphanage, and was picked up by the orphanage when I was exactly 3 years old. According to the director, I was sick at that time, and I looked wrinkled and ugly. The traffickers probably thought that a child like me could not be sold, so they just dumped me on the roadside. Fortunately, I was later picked up by the director of the welfare home. Then I had a high fever, and after I recovered, I forgot everything that happened before the age of 3. It turns out that I am not an orphan, I have a family, and my family has never given up looking for me. Thinking of this, I almost cried. Mark patted my shoulder. His face looked bad because of his illness, but his big, broad hands were still full of strength. He looked at me kindly and asked, "Kid, what are you doing now?" He asked me. I told him the name of the company I founded, and he actually knew it. Mark smiled and said, "It's that internet company." I originally thought that the richest man would not pay attention to such a small company. I was flattered and nodded repeatedly. Mark looked at me with approval and continued, "I've heard of this company, it's very strong. Even my assistant told me that the boss of this company is a rare talent. I didn't expect that such a talent is my son." Mark said this with a look of pride in his eyes. My heart also warmed up. I chatted with Mark for a long time, talking about the company, the past, and the future. Until my cell phone rang at an inopportune time. I looked down and saw that the caller was Sophia. I was suddenly awakened from this scene of loving father and filial son. I was so relaxed and nostalgic when I was with Mark that I forgot the time and the two murderers who were lurking around me, ready to kill me at any time. I apologized to Mark, and before I got up to answer the phone, I specifically told him, "Dad, can you please not tell the outside world that you have found your son, and don't disclose my identity for the time being? I still have some things to deal with, and I will tell you after I have dealt with them, okay?" Of course, no problem. For Mark, finding his son who had been missing for many years was already a pleasant surprise. It was just a small request, and he would not refuse me. After finishing things here, I went to the corridor and answered Sophia's call. I pretended to be concerned and asked, "Honey, what's wrong?" Sophia said anxiously, "Why don't you come? If you don't go up the mountain, it will be dark soon." I sneered and continued, "Where are you now?" "I'm still preparing a surprise for you. How about this? I'll ask David if he's free and let him escort you up the mountain first. I'll come find you later. I'll tell my friend first, and you drive to his place to get the equipment, and I'll go up later. Do you think this is okay?" I guessed that Sophia would not refuse me. Firstly, I had prepared the equipment, which would give her the illusion that I would definitely go up. In addition, the person I wanted to ask for help was her lover David. David originally had no legitimate reason to appear on the South Mountain. In the previous life, in order to conceal their tracks, they deliberately went down the mountain separately, and David took a detour and a small path to go down the mountain. But if I took the initiative to add David, David would have a legitimate reason to appear on the mountain. Sure enough, after hearing what I said, Sophia quickly relaxed her guard and readily agreed, and repeatedly reminded me, "You must come." I smiled and said, "Don't worry." After hanging up the phone with Sophia, I called David. I almost vomited when I heard the hypocritical voice on the other end. David asked seriously, "What's the matter?" "Nothing, it's just that my girlfriend wants to go camping in the mountains tonight, and I haven't prepared the surprise yet." I said casually, "Do you have anything to do tonight? If not, could you please pick up my girlfriend and take her up the mountain first? I'm afraid it will be dangerous if I'm late. I'll go up later when I've prepared the surprise. I'm already asking the master to expedite it shouldn't take long. I'm not very free tonight, let me see." David pretended to hesitate for a moment. I didn't indulge him, and continued, "If you're not available, I'll find someone else." "Hey, what are you doing?" David panicked immediately, and didn't even bother to refuse. He quickly stopped me and said, I'm free. It's just a small dinner party, it's okay if you skip it. Have you forgotten what I told you, that you want to be a witness to your love?" As a witness to our love, David did say this. David and I have been friends since college, and I have spent more time with him than with Sophia. I have always regarded David as a true brother. Even though he failed in his business and fell into poverty, I never despised him for it. Instead, I always thought about him and helped him in every way. David and I had a sincere relationship before, and he said at that time, "I treat you as my own brother. If one of us meets someone we like in the future, we must not hide it from each other and must be witnesses of each other's love." I was deeply moved by his words. So after meeting Sophia, I introduced her to David without hesitation. From pursuing her to confessing my love, I followed the agreement and let him witness every stage of my love. But what about him? When he saw me and Sophia hugging each other, was he hoping that we would be happy, or was he planning how to kill me and take Sophia away from me? When did they get together? When they joined forces to kill me, did they think of me for even a moment? I have no idea of all this. I only know that I was killed by these two closest people and became a ghost. Now I finally have a chance to start over. I will definitely make all those who hurt me pay the price. After talking to David, I hung up the phone and went into the ward to say goodbye to Mark. Instead of going home, I looked around for a good place to perfectly escape this disaster. After all, something has to be paid for. I found a place with a suitable height and jumped down. I controlled my landing posture, so my feet were only slightly injured, but compared to the fate of having my limbs broken in my previous life, this was already good. Even though my foot was slightly injured, I can still do a lot of things, but there are many things I have to put aside. I took the phone Sophia bought for me and threw it to the ground. I watched the screen smash to pieces, and a sense of satisfaction surged in my heart. Tonight, you two will never be able to contact me. I will spend the night in fear on that mountain with poor signal and few people. After breaking my leg, I took the initiative to go to the hospital, asked the doctor to bandage my foot, and issued an injury report. In order to conceal it, I bought a pair of crutches, then returned to the company and stayed in the lounge of my office, waiting for a good show. I slept comfortably, and after the doctor treated my leg, the pain was gone. After the tragedy in my previous life, I slept very peacefully this time. Because we had agreed to go to the mountain together, if I was alone at home and my leg was injured, and those two people came to my house and forcibly took me to the mountain, I would still have no way to deal with it. But it's different in the office. If they can go down the mountain tomorrow, it will definitely not be that easy for them to enter my company and take me away in public. Besides, if I waited for my employees to arrive in the office, I could immediately use their phones to call Sophia back and easily clear myself of suspicion. They wouldn't suspect me so quickly, and I would have more time to maneuver and better implement my revenge plan. The next morning, when my assistant saw me in the company, he was a little surprised. I quickly said to him, "Christopher, go buy me a new phone. By the way, lend me your phone so I can make a call." Christopher didn't understand why, but he quickly agreed. After getting his phone, I immediately called Sophia. The call took a long time to be connected. Before I could say anything, I heard the sound of something breaking from the other end, followed by a loud scream. I smiled, but before I could pretend to care, Sophia hung up the phone. I immediately sent a text message to ask about your well-being. "Sophia, what's wrong? What happened? Why did I hear screams? Sophia, are you okay? I fell yesterday and hurt my leg, and my phone was broken, so I couldn't contact you. It wasn't until my assistant came to work today that I got the phone. Are you okay? If you're okay, call me or send me a message." "It's better not to call me or send me a message." "No, it's best to die in the mountains," I thought to myself. Looking at this long string of text messages, I sighed that my acting skills were really good, then deleted the records and returned the phone to Christopher. Christopher immediately went downstairs to buy me a new mobile phone and thoughtfully inserted my spare phone card. I was very satisfied with his quick and efficient work. I said happily, "Christopher, how much is the phone? I'll transfer it to you." Christopher gave me an honest number, and I transferred him an extra $1,000 on top of that. Christopher was an honest child. He was shocked when he saw it and said anxiously, "Boss, you transferred an extra $1,000. I joked, "I just used your phone to send a few text messages. Just consider it as the text message fee." Christopher said cautiously, "But text messaging shouldn't cost that much." I waved my hand and said, "Sending those text messages made me feel really good. I suddenly felt that the sun was shining and the future was bright. Thank you, Christopher." After my heartfelt thanks, Christopher scratched his head sheepishly. About an hour later, Sophia contacted me again. She probably saw those messages and wanted to complain to me, but she had nowhere to talk to. She could only choke and say, "Dear, what should I do?" When Mr. David was going down the mountain just now, he walked over a steep slope and his trekking pole suddenly broke. Mr. David fell directly from the steep slope and hit his head. He is in the hospital now. What? David fell and hit his head, and he was hospitalized? Such a good thing actually happened. I resisted the urge to laugh, cleared my throat and said, "How could this happen? Is it serious? Are you okay?" It may be difficult for David to afford the medical expenses by himself. How about this? I will come to you later. When David wakes up, I will help him to claim compensation from the insurance company. I said it in a tone of obligation. Seeing that I was talking directly about the insurance company, Sophia didn't know what to say. When she said that she was afraid to ask for comfort, it was a bit hesitant. Sophia didn't say a word, and seeing that she couldn't achieve her goal, she quickly hung up the phone with an excuse. I burst out laughing. As expected, the purpose of calling was to get me to pay. Sophia is so smart, she knows that I am talking about insurance claims because I don't want to pay. Seeing that she can't get her lover's medical expenses from me, Sophia is too lazy to even pretend to be nice to me. Sophia's position is so obvious, and the way she calls Mr. David also seems to be trusting and intimate. How could I not see it in my previous life? The phone call was hung up, but I had to continue to perform the play. My foot injury was not serious, and I could actually walk briskly, but in order to perform the play well, I still walked firmly with crutches. On the way, I also refused the help offered by a kind young man. After walking for a long time, I finally arrived at the hospital. I called Sophia in advance to ask about the location of the ward. When I arrived, David just came out of the operating room. Sophia seemed to have forgotten that I was coming over, and she cried beside David without any hesitation. Although I had seen this couple being together in my previous life, my face still turned black when I saw them behave so unabashedly again. Until David on the bed saw me, he coughed a few times, pushed Sophia in what he thought was a very covert way, then looked at me and coughed twice awkwardly. "You're here." Sophia immediately stood up from the bed, her eyes were red, and she didn't even wipe away her tears. She cried and said, "Honey, you are finally here." Sophia took a step forward, trying to rub the tears she shed for another man onto me. I quickly took a step back, pretending that I didn't hold the crutches well, and fell down. I fell to the ground in embarrassment, and tried several times to stand up by myself without success. When I looked up at David, the suspicion in his eyes had disappeared. Sophia watched me fall several times before she woke up from a dream and ran over to help me up and said, "Honey, how did you fall? It's so serious." Sophia pretended to care about me. I used her strength to get up and almost pulled her down. After pretending to stand firmly, I said with a look of disappointment, "It's all my fault. It's all my fault. I was so excited when I got the surprise I prepared for you yesterday that I fell on the stairs and hurt my leg. The phone you bought for me was also broken," I said, showing the broken phone to Sophia. Sophia seemed to have a flash of disgust in her eyes, which was fleeting, but I still caught it. So I said casually, "It's a pity that the diamond ring I customized for you accidentally fell somewhere and I can't find it anymore." Hearing this, Sophia's expression finally changed. This was the first time Sophia showed a heartbroken expression after hearing how much I suffered, not because of me, but because of the diamond ring. It was valuable. I should have known better. I smiled and said, "It's okay, Sophia, I'm not seriously injured. I can buy another diamond ring if I lose it." "But David, how are you? Are you injured?" David saw this and quickly pretended to be very weak and said, "I'm fine. It's just that the slope was too steep when we were going downhill. I thought Sophia was a girl and couldn't let her walk in front. It was too dangerous, so I took the trekking pole and walked in front." David pretended to be wronged and said, "Who knows? The trekking pole was not of good quality and suddenly broke, and I fell from it. I went to the hospital for a checkup and it turned out to be a concussion, which was quite serious. My arm was also broken." David and I have been together for a long time, and I knew what he was going to say as soon as he opened his mouth. Before he could finish his words, I quickly said, "You were suddenly injured so badly, it's really a disaster for you. Don't worry, brother, I have connections at the insurance company, and I will definitely do my best to help you get more compensation." I said this with great righteousness, and anyone with a sense of dignity would be too embarrassed to say anything. Although David behaved improperly, he always tried to save face in front of me. When he saw me say this, he had no intention of giving him money. Although his face was ugly, he shut up. I saw that they had no other tricks for the time being, and thought that the show was almost over, so I made an excuse to leave. I looked at them and said weakly, "David is here, and he is so badly injured. I don't know if he will have any trouble in the future. Sophia, you stay here with him, I'll go check my leg first." In fact, I am not completely sure about this excuse, and it is even full of loopholes. He is already in the hospital, so there is no chance of any accident. Even if there is something inconvenient, just press the bell and professional medical staff will come to help. On the contrary, I am on crutches, which seems to be more laborious. If Sophia really cared about me and refused this suggestion and insisted on accompanying me to the checkup, all the performances I have performed so far would be wasted. But she didn't offer to accompany me to the checkup, instead she just sat down beside David's bed. Sophia said with concern, "I'll stay here with Mr. David, you take care." It was a predictable outcome. My leg wasn't seriously injured at all, so there was no need for a checkup. So after I got on the elevator, I didn't check my leg, but went to my dad Mark's ward. As soon as I reached the door, I found that the door of the ward was open, but the light of the operating room at the end of the corridor was on, such a dazzling red light. I panicked for a moment, looking around for a long time before someone stopped me and said, "You are the chairman's son, right?" He said, "I forgot to leave your contact information yesterday. The chairman's condition suddenly worsened, and I couldn't contact you." My brain exploded and the computer suddenly crashed. I said, "I always feel like I forgot something. In my previous life, when I came to the hospital with Sophia and the others, I didn't see my dad at all. They said he was in the operating room, but how could someone who was so energetic yesterday suddenly have to go into the operating room? There was only one possibility, that is, his condition took a turn for the worse tonight. I was so focused on dealing with those two people that I neglected to remind my dad of this. I felt very guilty and quickly asked the man how my father was doing. The nurse thought for a moment and finally said, "It's still in surgery, but the results are not ideal. Just like in the previous life. In the previous life, my father suddenly became critically ill, and the people around him became a mess, which gave David the opportunity to pass himself off as the real one. Last life, last life." Suddenly, an idea struck me, and I remembered something I heard in my previous life. At that time, an old friend of my father said that my father's disease was not untreatable, and that there was hope as long as we invited an expert from abroad. But David was unwilling to try at that time. He shed a few crocodile tears and said hypocritically, "There is no guarantee that it will be cured 100%. Dad has suffered so much, and I don't want him to continue to suffer." With just these one sentence, he gave up my father's life so easily. Half a year has passed since then, and Mark's condition had not yet completely deteriorated. I immediately found the expert according to his name in my memory. He was a foreign expert. I spent a lot of money and asked someone to invite him to come overnight. After going through many channels, I finally invited him to China half a month later. Less than half a month after the specialists took over Mark's case, he had already regained consciousness. Although he still looked sick, he was much better than before in the intensive care unit. At this time, the paternity test results came out. We are indeed father and son. Experts say that Mark's condition has basically stabilized, and as long as he continues to take medication, it will not recur unless something unexpected happens. I finally breathed a sigh of relief. After a busy month, I just remembered that there were 2 more people. I took the initiative to send a message to Sophia and said, "Honey, are you busy recently? Sorry, I have too many things to do here and always ignore you." When I lowered my head and waited for her to reply, my eyes swept across the necklace around my neck, and an idea suddenly came to my mind. I seemed to know how to make them both get the retribution they deserved. I asked someone to make a replica of the necklace, half of which is exactly the same as the half shown in the picture of the missing person notice. The other half, which is censored, is slightly modified based on my original. I took the fake to my father and asked him if he could spot the difference. Mark quickly pointed out the difference, which was subtle, but if you are familiar with the real thing and look carefully, you can see it. My bet is that Sophia and the others can't even remember what the real thing looks like. I told my father, "Dad, if someone comes to you with this necklace to claim their relationship, don't rush to refuse. Keep that person and do a paternity test." Mark didn't understand why I did this, but he respected my opinion and agreed. After I got along with him, I contacted Sophia. I prepared a special romantic candlelight dinner. After the meal, I asked her to close her eyes, and she did so obediently. When she closed her eyes, I put the fake necklace on her neck, and then said with deep affection, "Dear, I thought about it, things like diamond rings should be chosen by you. Things that are to be worn for a lifetime still need to be liked by you. But proposing without a diamond ring seems insincere. After thinking it over, I decided to give you this necklace that has always been with me. Are you willing to accept it?" After hearing what I said, Sophia was ecstatic. She stared at the necklace greedily and nodded quickly, saying, "Yes, of course I do." I didn't say anything, just smiled. After getting the necklace, Sophia didn't even have the mood to eat and chat with me. She was eager to leave, probably because she wanted to give the necklace to David. I didn't drag her any further, but said goodbye to her directly. Sure enough, the next morning, my dad sent me a message saying, "Someone really came to my house with the necklace, a man and a woman, and the man said he was my son. I followed your instructions and kept him for a paternity test." "Son, what is going on?" "Dad, I'll explain it to you later," I said excitedly. "Now, we are ready to close the net." Mark asked them to do a paternity test, which would give them a wrong understanding. They got the real necklace and were about to do a paternity test to confirm their relationship. Before that, they would never allow me, their biological son, to continue living for fear of mistakes. I hired many bodyguards to protect me in secret. Sure enough, one night, on my way home from work, David, wearing a hooded sweatshirt, sunglasses, and a mask, holding a knife, blocked an alley I often passed by. David, who thought he was disguising himself well, ran up to me with a sly grin and said excitedly, "You can blame others for not having a good life." Just as he raised the knife and was about to stab me, the security guard who had been lying in ambush on the side kicked him away and took the knife away. Seeing him fall to the ground in a mess, I laughed and said proudly, "David, who was not destined to enjoy happiness. I had someone install surveillance cameras on this road a long time ago, and the surveillance clearly captured David holding a knife and preparing to stab me. This scene was enough. I ordered someone to keep David under guard, and played the video over and over again as he looked at me in disbelief. I said coldly, "Attempted murder will lead to imprisonment, Mr. David." David said in disbelief, "Impossible, this is impossible. How could you know in advance? You set me up, right? You did it on purpose. If you mean giving Sophia a fake necklace, getting her to give it to you, and then pushing the 2 of you to go find my dad, then yes, I designed it," I said, "but so what? You want to harm me, and if you fail once, you will keep failing. It's useless." After saying that, I turned around and left. Before I left, I asked the bodyguards to take David to the police station on the charge of attempted murder. With such a clear and effective video as evidence, David was quickly convicted. I had given my statement, and when I was leaving the police station, someone suddenly stopped me. It was Sophia. Sophia said with a pale face, "Did you know this a long time ago?" I didn't mind answering her questions. In fact, because David was convicted, I felt happy and patient. "Yes." Sophia shouted in disbelief, "How is it possible? How could you possibly know?" Seeing her collapse, I said calmly, "Sophia, do you believe in rebirth?" Sophia's face turned even paler, and she said in confusion, "How is it possible? How could this happen? You must be lying to me." "Yes, in my previous life, Before I was beaten to death by you and thrown off the cliff, I also thought that such a thing would never happen, I continued calmly, but such a thing happened. I survived, and the evildoers will get their retribution. I smiled happily, looked at her and said, you already knew that I was the son of the richest man, right? Why didn't you tell me, but told David and conspired with him to murder me? You obviously know that I love you. No, it's not. You don't love me at all, Sophia screamed hysterically. Mr. David told me that you don't love me at all. You said you went to the company to work overtime, but you were actually with other women. You don't love me at all. If you knew you were the son of the richest man, you would definitely dump me. I'm with another woman, do you believe that? I widened my eyes, then couldn't help but smile bitterly. Every day I'm not at home, I'm always working in the company. I can even pull up my attendance sheet to show you. The people I'm with in the company are all men. Why do you think I would cheat? Sophia cried and said, Mr. David said so. He clearly said he saw you with another woman. I called you at that time, but you didn't answer. That's because I'm busy, I want to make money to propose to you. After saying that, I was calm. I really didn't expect that the woman I loved sincerely would want to kill me for such a reason. Suddenly I remembered the photo I accidentally received before. I found it and handed it to Sophia. It was never me who cheated. In the photo, David was hugging a woman, and the two were kissing passionately, completely unaware of the flash going off again and again in the corner. After seeing this photo, Sophia finally couldn't help herself and squatted on the ground, breaking down and crying. I left without hesitation, without even giving her a glance. I heard about what happened later from my father. David died when he was about to serve his sentence. Sophia killed him personally. She used the excuse of visiting the prison and hid a small blade in her belt. The moment she saw David, she stabbed the blade into his throat. David died on the spot before the ambulance even arrived. Sophia killed David and then put the blade to her own throat, but the cut was not deep enough and she was saved. When she woke up in the hospital, she jumped out of the ward without hesitation. I hadn't even sent anyone to do anything before she went to her own destruction. I didn't feel sorry for the ending, but rather happy. The evildoers will eventually be punished, and after reuniting with my father, I will move towards my future step by step.